How did the kangaroos get to Australia? The Bible can't explain that, because how could they jump over 100 miles from Noah's Ark, man? Atheists think they can stump a Christian with this question, with the challenge, but the Bible has the answer. You are just ignorant. So let me explain. Obviously, they cannot get there as it is now, just by land. However, and the Spanish were in Australia before the British, as I prove in this series. However, the Bible says, first let's look at the context. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, including kangaroos, I add, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Later says, The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram, and the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash, and Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber, and unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. Peleg means division. And his brother's name was Yoktan. So Peleg means division. For in his days was the earth divided. And some say that this refers to the Tower of Babel division of mankind by languages, but that's not the case. So look at this. You have to count generations to see if this man, Peleg, matches the time of the Tower of Babel when Nimrod was around. So from Peleg to, from Noah to Peleg is Noah to Shem 1, Shem to Arphaxad 2, Arphaxad to Shelah 3, Shelah to Eber 4, Eber to Peleg 5 generations from Noah. And in that time they lived hundreds of years because conditions were different. And atheists who mock magic, you guys, you have no right to mock magic. You have no right to mock miraculous things or extraordinary things, because there's nothing more miraculous than your atheist shit of slime magically transforming into Frankenslime, which is more magical than alchemy on acid. Or rather, it is alchemy on acid. It's more magical than alchemy, man. You're more superstitious than someone who believes alchemy is real, atheist. So you don't have the right to laugh. And we'll see who has the last laugh. So anyway, 5 generations I think it was. Compare that to from Noah to Nimrod. So Noah was the father of Ham, that's 1. Ham, father of Cush, 2. Cush, the father of Nimrod, 3 generations. And the beginning of the kingdom of Nimrod was Babel. So the Tower of Babel was 3 generations away from Noah, whereas Peleg was 5 generations away, I think it was. Therefore, the division of tongues at Babel occurred before the division of the earth in Peleg's lifetime. The earth was divided in a different way than at Babel after the linguistic division, that is. It has to refer to the literal earth because this accounts for kangaroos in Australia and nothing else makes sense. Peleg's division is mentioned for just a moment without details added, so it is not clear how the earth was split, be it by a rise of the sea level, which would have covered land bridges, or lands moving, maybe both. I imagine the sea level could have risen if subterranean caverns of the deepest parts were caved in, pushing the waters up and out. Maybe there was a leftover from the flood that hadn't yet collapsed, pushing water up. This is unlikely, but I have to consider it to be a free thinker. The Bible, the Bible says to question everything. The Bible says to be a free thinker. I can do a video on that later, maybe. The Bible taught plate tectonics before it was cool. Hundreds and hundreds of years before it was cool. Atheists are catching up to the Bible. You can't surpass, you're just agreeing with it when it comes to plate tectonics, although on some details you disagree. So here you have the main model according to this, which seems legit. There is a sort of a ring of fire. I was born by it. I've seen volcanoes in Costa Rica, for example. I think Irasu was one of them. Pretty neat. It's like bumper cars, but on steroids. However, the Himalayas do not match what it would look like if India crashed into Asia. Here you see claims of millions of years ago. That's atheist propaganda pushed by Masons who worship Satan. See my series on the politically incorrect history of atheism, where I prove that millions of years claims are all lies. It's not just that they are false, it's that they know they're false. They know they're unreliable, but they push them anyway for the agenda. So here's India and the Himalayas and Tibet on the other side. By the way, free Sikkim, free Hawaii, free Lakota lands, free Ainu lands, free West Papua, and maybe free Tibet. I don't know. I mean, Tibet once had an empire and dominated other people probably. What goes around comes around, right? Anyway, you can see that that if India crashed into the rest of Asia, you would have a different kind of aftermath, not this. You would have to have a curvature kind of a thing, where it curves towards the origin of the projectile or the thing that hit the other thing. You know what I mean? Like that curvature and that curvature. So here you should expect something more like this, but instead you have the opposite, because India didn't crash into the rest of Asia. It was always in Asia. God designed it this way. However, some places like Australia, those were connected to Africa, which is why the natives of Australia are practically African people, Negroids. You can classify them differently, but they're practically the same thing. No offense, but you're similarly dark, similarly broad, big noses. I don't know about languages though, but there are different kinds of languages in sub-Saharan Africa. They're not all the same. And here you see this doesn't really match what a crash by India into the rest of Asia would look like. Doesn't add up, especially when you consider that the Tian Shan Mountains, which is redundant because I think Shan means mountains in Chinese. Shan, you have to sing it, I guess. Those are part of the Himalaya unit. They're just titled, they're just given a different name, but it's really part of the same range. It's all connected. So, and look, it's like a spectrum. It's part of the same thing. So if you're going to try to account for the Himalayas, you have to also account for the rest of the Himalayas. The Tian Shan are practically the rest of the Himalayas. And India crashing into Asia is a childish explanation for that. It doesn't account for that. India would have had to have made all by crashing, if mountains require a giant landmass to crash into another. Notice that this doesn't fit their myth. Look at this lowland pocket over here. That's supposed to be very mountainous if there was a crash, but no land rose there because there was no crash. You can imagine that Italy was once part of Africa because you can stick it in Libya. But that's imagination. When I see the maps of the world, I see how great God is at design, because I have tried to design my own maps And you just can't beat God's design. He has the best designs for balance, for strategy, for it's just beautiful how he does it. For example, Europe is the small west part of Eurasia, and then the rest of Eurasia, Asia, is huge, right? So it's unbalanced, except that Europe is within closer reach of America. Historically, it reached America by predestination, because nothing happens unless God lets it happen. And that balances it out, doesn't it? That's how NATO and Russia are kind of balanced. So if you can imagine that Italy, I don't know if they say this, but you can imagine that Italy created the Alps by crashing into Europe. However, just as with the Himalayas case, this is not the aftermath of such a thing. It doesn't work. It's inconsistent with what should happen if that did happen. It just doesn't make sense. And this is from Golden Sun, The Lost Age, which was fun, although it has witchcraft stuff, which I don't enjoy in a fantasy setting either, because I know what it really represents, so I can't really enjoy it. But it has great music. I love Golden Sun music. I haven't played Dark Dawn though. This is not how Pangaea looked, but someone's idea of how it could have looked. As I said, Australia would have had to have been part of Africa before, and Papua New Guinea, because the people there look just like Africans with some differences. So yeah, it's not a perfect fit, South Africa and Africa. You kind of have to stretch it, because while the part of Angola and Brazil seems to fit perfectly, the rest doesn't, and much of it has nothing to do with Africa, and vice versa. Now, I don't agree with everything in this website, and the people are probably heretics, but that doesn't mean they can't get some things right. And they helped me to see that the Bible says there was once one land, not many lands. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he seas, and God saw that it was good. So here you see the Hebrew for earth, which is in singular. So it's one earth. It is Pangaea. I don't know Latin yet, so I don't know if the AE combination is pronounced Ae or I, or maybe it depends on the time period or the place. Moving on now. As you can see, the plural would be aratzot or something like that. Not eretz. Here you have arts. Arts would be singular, like eretz. Eretz is the land, so would be the. Arts, land, retz. The E or the A vowels in Hebrew they were added later. I'm not sure what the original pronunciation is of retz or arts. So one of those. But the point is, it's singular, not plural. When the Bible says that there was land, it was singular. So the Bible says it's Pangaea. So the Bible talks about Pangaea, which shows that on nature it doesn't miss. And atheists are catching up like 2,000 plus years later. Yeah, 4,000 years later maybe. Well, the Bible was written after these events, during the time of Noah, so let's say 3,000 years later. You're 3,000 years late, atheists, to agree with the Bible. It took you a while. I plan to do a video on how the Bible does not teach that the earth is flat. Toodles.